suicide prevention charity. Our charity is a grassroots charity where nobody actually gets paid for their services that they do. So we all work full time. I'm one of our directors. We also facilitate mental health first aid training. We do mental health prevention talks throughout our community. We also go out and talk to young people and do intervention with them as well. So all our stuff that we conduct through the charity, even our work with our coffee van that we get out and about, we use that in the storms after the Christmas period, which was a really nice way. When I was actually talking about connecting, I wasn't talking about footpaths, I was talking about actually connecting our community. So with that, it was a really vital tool there to see so many of our community in such dire straight circumstances. And the fact was, there wasn't a great much we could do physically until Energex had gone through and made everything safe. The safety obviously being everyone's priority first. But the power in actually being able to turn up and supply a coffee to a grandma and a granddad and a mum and dad and a father and son, and have people connect together and actually be able to share their experiences and realise, hey, we're not in this alone. Little acts like that are extremely powerful. So my community work I've done there through the charity. I've coached rugby league for free for the last 19 years. Since I was 19, so 21 years. I don't know if you want to find out how many hours I've done that. I'm sure my lovely wife sitting over there has got a log somewhere. So plenty of that. If you want to start adding up phone calls and all the little nitty gritty. But community stuff's what I've done. You can go and check it out. That's me. It'll always be me. That doesn't start and finish with me with the campaign. It doesn't start and finish at the end at March 16th. So what we do, what I do personally, will always be there in the community. And time efficient.
Not sure I'll beat that 2 minutes exactly. What I've been doing, obviously, as you would know, I work for council, so a lot of my connections have come through my job with council. But there's charities that I've focused on that I really enjoy helping, that I've decided to dedicate time and effort to outside of my paid work. So things like the Cancer Council Queensland. I've done a lot with them for probably about 6 or 7 years now. That's a charity that's close to my heart, and I've had a lot of friends and family who've gone through their own battles, so I will continue to do that no matter where I am, no matter what I'm doing. Lots of PNCs and various other charity groups within our community that I think are doing some wonderful things. I think there's a couple of people in the room who came to the Think Pink charity ball a couple of years ago. That was a wonderful fundraiser in Yarrabilba, involved a lot of local Logan Village and Yarrabilba people. As Nathan said, it doesn't stop and end with an election campaign, it doesn't stop and end with a 9-to-5 job. I'll continue to be doing that as much as I can, and I look forward to supporting many other charities in the area as well.
Yeah, I'll be really specific. I'm a member of I'm the secretary of the Yarrabilba Community Garden, and we've got some members here today. Come join us on tomorrow morning. We've got our working bee, and it's a small crew that is dedicated just to growing plants, growing food for community to come by and grab. And it's a really, really great group. And I'm a member of the Logan Village Lions, who obviously are very kind in hosting us today. And I think I've seen probably way too many sausages and onion sandwiches over the last however many months. No offence, Phil, don't tell anyone. I will get a fine later on at the dinner.
I haven't seen anything yet, mate.
And I think the other thing in the last 2 years, that sadly keeps coming up is storms, as Nathan said. I think we are seem to be the storm-prone part of the city. And in 2022, I was out door knocking on people. I took leave to go out door knocking. I didn't get paid to check if people were all right, to help people with their financial assistance applications. And I did the same thing again over Christmas, New Year's. I came home from spending time with my parents and helped fill people's applications out, because the online system is extremely convoluted and didn't work for many people if you were impacted a year ago. So that's some of the stuff I've been up to.
Sorry, I have a big mouth but not a big voice. So this next question is, what do you see as your biggest achievement in the Logan community? Yep, let's start with Lucy this time.
Biggest achievements in the Logan community, that's a hard one. Personally, I don't think I can take responsibility or credit for any achievements within the Logan community, but I've been part of some wonderful teams who have achieved fantastic things in the Logan community, whether that's through council, whether it's through some of the charities and groups that I've mentioned before. But I believe it's not just one person who can achieve things. It's community groups, it's dedicated individuals, it's the community spirit. And in Logan we have a community spirit that is absolutely second to none. The floods showed us that, the mud armies, all of those wonderful things, and I look forward to continuing to working with our community, with those groups, to continue achieving those wonderful things.
Look, I agree. I think a lot of the awesome achievements that I've gotten to be a part of have been kind of a team effort. I don't want to be one of those people who takes all the credit for really anything, but whether it be up, in the Woodlands when we campaigned to get a bus route through the Woodlands, because obviously the estate roads there were too narrow. That was a really grassroots campaign that I got to be proud to be part of. Whether it be, one of my biggest bugbears that I bugged a lot of people about, and John Raven would know this because it's up in his patch. It's the intersection up at Loganlea and Kingston that, I had almost 2 accidents on that intersection, and I went to a politician and said this needs to change. It took 3 years to change, but it's improved massively, and I know a lot of residents were involved in that, particularly residents that were impacted because they had car crashes there. But I think, again, as Lucy said, Logan's got such a good community spirit, so I don't want to be one of those politicians that stands up and takes a photo and this is my achievement. I really want us as a community to have positive achievements and look forward to many more in the future.
I look out here and I see, obviously, it's no secret, everyone knows that Scott and I are mates. Some of the events that I've been able to be part of to help Scott put on, raising nearly $50,000 for the Glenn McGrath Foundation over a couple of years with the Pink Stumps Day, having a small contribution to that. This year we were able to raise nearly somewhere between $12,000 and $15,000 for mental health for men on our first International Men's Night. But one that sticks in my mind in particular is the work that we've done with young people in going out and breaking down that stigma around mental health. And this one is something that you see after the fact. My wife had gone to get her hair cut at a hairdresser. The lady's name was actually Tennille, which was quite ironic. They got chatting over having their hair cut, and this lady spoke about her son coming home and saying that he didn't know what was going on, but he needed to go and talk to someone about how he was feeling. And for me, that was really powerful. How we figured out we had a little tie to that. The conversation went on, and Tennille and the hairdresser were talking back and forth, and she said that a group of blokes had come out to their football club and spoken to her team. That's all the mum had known about what had happened. She said, "What did these blokes look like?" She said, "I don't know, they were all just really big with tattoos." And Tennille said, "Well, that was probably my husband and his charity." And it turned out it was. So while that may not be something big and catastrophic, if that's made a difference to that one individual, and that's a young man at 15, then I think that's probably one of our biggest achievements that I've been involved in.
All right, so we'll start with Josh first for this next question. So what areas of need have you identified in our community? And if elected, how will you work to address this?
Where do we start? Look, I think infrastructure is, as I said at the beginning, is the number one issue, but infrastructure is really broad and really wide, so whether or not it's our rural and regional roads that are crumbling underneath us every time we drive and have a bit of rain, whether it be the fact that Yarrabooba is a suburb of 13,000 people now and doesn't have any activities for teenagers, and then we get really surprised why teenagers get up to silly things. So I think infrastructure is the big thing, and I think as a city, what we're suffering from, and I'm sure the mayoral candidates will speak about this a little bit later, is this challenge around infrastructure charges and new developments. Us existing ratepayers essentially subsidising new development, and our own infrastructure that we rely on every day does not get maintained. That needs to change. We can't just keep going in this endless cycle of adding additional pressure onto our infrastructure that we already have, that's already breaking, and not maintain it. So I think we need to have some pretty tough conversation with the state government, and you know, I know Nathan said about advocating, but it's not about advocating, it's quite frankly about telling them what to do. They need to change this. They need to change and increase the cap of infrastructure charges that we can, you know, for those who don't know, we build the roads and sewage and roads for new developments, and then we build the developer, and that amount that we can build is capped, and that's essentially capped at 2011 levels. It has not kept up with inflation or with the cost rise we've seen over the last few years. That needs to change. And if that changes, we can actually invest in the infrastructure that all of us who already live here use every day and keep up with growth. So I think that's the number one thing for me.
I agree with Josh. Infrastructure is just not up to the standard that we need for our massively growing community. We see the volume of traffic on roads like Beaudesert Beanley Road and Waterford Tambourine Road every day. We need to do better with that and working with all levels of government to achieve those things. But every community, we've got 12 different suburbs. Every suburb in our community has very different needs. What I'm hearing when I'm out door knocking is from people in Windaroo, for example. They'd like some more footpaths to connect them to the main roads. They would like the intersection of Bannockburn, Baliva Road and Beaudesert Beanley Road upgraded to lights because it's so dangerous. That is a major priority. Hooning across the city, while not a council issue, there are things that council can implement to assist with hooning. So CCTV cameras, greater police presence, working with police to achieve those things. In Waterford, we've got the dog park. People would like to see a second dog park because there's a lot of dog attacks between small and large in the same area. So every single suburb has very different priorities, and working with the community, with all levels of government and with service providers to deliver on those priorities.
My head's just still spinning from Josh's data there. Well done, mate. The biggest thing I think is you can't just go in and tell people. I said right at the start, it's about relationships. I can go in and tell state members and tell federal members and tell people, but if you just tell people and don't build a relationship and work with them, your outcomes are going to be very minimal. And that's something I've learned. And I've learned the hard way in times where thinking that that's how it's going to work. So it's making sure that you build a relationship to work with people. And I agree with Lucy, and I know Josh has spoken about as well, the intersection down at Windaroo there. By telling people, what did the community get recently? We got a letter from our state member that was really long and well written, pretty much saying it's not going to happen. So telling people doesn't work. You need to work with people, you need to build relationships. We've got to start remembering too, this is a whole division that goes from Tambourine to Waterford, out to Windaroo and around to Cedar Creek, and all the areas in between. So we need to make sure the relationships are really good. There's challenges, we need to get a plan in place. When you build a house, you need to make sure the plan is Mickey Mouse first. That's why there's so much time. If anyone's built a house in this room recently, you'll know that the frustrations in the initial stage become really annoying because the builder wants to make sure that the plan is right. The plan is right and that they work together. The next step there is building those foundations and getting those right. And I can guarantee you, and it's no different, it doesn't matter whether you're wearing a pair of safety boots or you're wearing a nice pair of RMs and a pair of slacks. If your relationship's poor with the people that you're working with, you'll never get the outcomes you want. So those relationships need to be strong with the community, and then the relationships with the other people to get those. We've spoken about the issues are there. Okay, we know the issues are there. We've got to take our blinkers off and look for solutions.
All right, so many residents who have never previously had flooding are now flood affected. This is directly due to Logan City Council's new flood mapping. What will you do to remedy this situation now and in the future? Let's start with, I don't know, Josh, since he's the numbers man today. How's that?
Yeah, so as I said earlier, the flood maps that came out in November, October last year, I'll be really blunt, we've got sitting councillors here, they've thrown everyone into a tizzy because they're quite frankly bizarre and confusing. They don't make sense for many of us who've lived on the Logan River, like myself, for many years and have never flooded, and suddenly now I'm at extremely high risk of flooding. You know, it just don't make sense. And when you compare our maps with other councils' maps, you can see how we've gone a different pathway. And it's really about identifying what your actual risk is and then what that translates. So on the Gold Coast, they've gone the other way around. They've decided to label risk as a percentage and actually saying, look, it's not low, moderate and high, but it's extremely unlikely, likely and likely. So I think those maps need to be reviewed. I'm not concerned about the science so much. I think there's some anomalies in the maps. You know, for anyone who lives up in Waterford, you will know how likely High Road floods every time it rains ever so slightly. For whatever reason, the maps have decided that that is a severely unlikely place to ever flood, which is, for anyone who knows, not true, right? Like common sense, again, it's about simple thinking. So I think those maps need to be reviewed, and I do think residents who have been impacted need to be able to tell council how they've been impacted. Because what we're seeing and what I'm hearing a lot is your premiums have gone up, but what I'm not hearing is, you know, what part of your property sometimes floods. But I've heard from one resident on the river, she said to me that, look, she knows the back of her paddock floods, that's totally fine. That's expected, but she has a huge property. Why does that little bit of flooding down there impact the rest of my house, which sits 10 metres higher up, that is unlikely to be flooded? We need to have these conversations and actually educate residents about what the flood maps mean and what that risk actually is, so that you can make choices about going out and buying insurance that are actually reasonable.
Following on from what Josh said, I agree with a lot of that residents don't understand why they're now impacted when they can go out and say, my family have lived here for 100 years, it's never flooded, it's never done this. I know that council have probably been overly cautious in their flood mapping, and they've used I believe it's the 1 in 100 year floods, which most people won't have seen. We're seeing that more and more often lately with climate change, with everything that's coming up. A 1 in 100 year flood is no longer a 1 in 100 year flood, it's a 1 in 5, 6, 7 years. But also it's to do with educating, perhaps not for council, but educating the insurance companies. As Josh said, we've got people in my home in the river who now have a very teeny tiny bit of the corner of their property and now can't get insurance, or their insurance is 3-4 times higher than what it needs to be. If I'm elected, which hopefully I will be, I look forward to going in and asking for briefings from officers to help me understand better so that I can talk to the community about why this has happened, what needs to change, and relook at the flood maps again.
Talking with insurance companies won't work. I've got a fire safety business, it's compliance work. If people don't get their compliance done on their building and it burns down, the insurer won't insure them. Whether they need it or not, whether they're there or not. The fact is, like I spoke about earlier, what's done is done. There's 5 uncontested councillors in our local area of Logan at the moment. 4 of those voted against the flood mapping. Read into that what you want, but that says something. At times, doing what's right isn't easy. Okay, so we're in this mess. Can we get it overturned? The honest truth is, I don't think anyone sitting up on this stage here can say yes or no to that. Okay? The thing is, there's people whose livelihoods, whose biggest investment, who have never had a drop of flood water on their property. And I've got friends who have never ever had flood water on their property, and all of a sudden their whole property's been covered by the flood mapping. We should have initially pushed back on the state government around that. And just sitting there and saying that that's okay, we'll just take that. All those lovely words we talk about here in campaign land, are you willing to do that when the time gets tough? Are you actually willing to stand up for what's right then and there and go, hey, this is not right, and we're going to offer some pushback here? Because my value system says there's a couple of non-negotiables, and that impacts individuals, families, mothers, fathers, children, everybody in this room. Our biggest, with the majority of people here, investment that we'll ever have is our home, that we put everything into. There is hundreds, probably thousands of people within our communities now whose market values are dropped, insurances and stuff are going up. Insurance companies aren't going to care. They are not going to care. They now have the data to justify why their prices are going up. So yeah, we need to fight it. How that looks, time will tell.
You're like right on the time, which we'll tell. Okay, so now I have questions for individual people, so I'll just sort of ask the question, pass to candidate and answer. Lucy, I'm going to start with you. So you have been the personal assistant for Laurie Karansky during her term as councillor. It has been said that people in the community consider that you have effectively been doing her job for the last couple of years. Do you think that this was fair or appropriate?
No. Simply, I would love to have been doing her job, but no, that's why I've decided to put my hand up, because I would like to do her job if possible. I've loved being able to be her personal assistant and recently advisor, because it's given me the knowledge and the opportunity to learn more about our community, to work more closely with them. When I first started in council 10 years ago, I was working for a number of different councillors. It was very different back then. We didn't have as much touch points with the community. We were in the office just answering phones and actioning resident requests, which was great, but I've loved having the opportunity to be out and about, talking to residents, working with them, and that's why I've decided to put my hand up, because although Laurie is retiring, I don't want to let the community go.
Josh, you are very much a Labor man, a party member with experience working for state members, among other things. Do you think that you can represent your constituency without party politics playing a role?
I thought it was going to be a way harder question. I think I do. Look, it's no secret I'm a member of the Labor Party, as are many, many people across Logan. But I think there's a really important distinction to be made, and it's that I'm not an endorsed candidate for the Labor Party. In fact, I don't think there's a single endorsed candidate by any party in this contest in Logan at any divisional level. And the beauty of that is I've really been able to come up with my own ideas. You know, I haven't had to sign up to anyone else's charter or rules or thoughts, and I won't be bound to anyone else's thoughts. I think a lot of the experience I gained in how government works, how policy works, and how you change those things did come from the Labor Party. Some people have talked about, you should resign before going into a race like this, but personally I thought that wasn't very genuine, right? Because those are still the people I've got connections with. You're right, I've worked for a cabinet minister, a very senior cabinet minister who I'm really proud to have worked for. We did a lot of really awesome stuff, particularly for domestic and family violence victims, in consumer affairs, which was my policy area, and in small business, all those COVID grants, that was us. No, I don't think I'll have any issues standing up for residents, and I think I've already made a point of today saying, the state government can do better. Quite frankly, they can do a lot better. And I won't be afraid of arguing that argument, yeah.
Nathan, I was unable to come up with too much dirt on you. But Nathan, you do, with the lack of dirt comes the whole lack of being in the community face, or the lack of experience in politics, as it were, the cut and the thrust of it all. Do you think that you're really up for this challenge?
So, as Lucy said and Josh said, they both work back of house for people that have been at the front. Everybody, each of the 12 councillors that get elected on the 16th of March are going to get a new advisor, or get an advisor to help them with that sort of stuff. So, in your answer to that, 100%. What was the other part of your question, sorry?
Just basically, do you think you're up for this?
I think what I've said already today, I definitely think I'm the best person for the job. We've got 5 uncontested candidates. 5 of those have just finished their first term. 5 of those are non-members of any political party. 5 of those had 0 experience when they stepped into the role.
Well, some of them have run before a while.
They still had 0 experience, mate. Okay, so that's where it comes from. That's where I believe, in a councillor level, we need community-minded people with the community's interest at heart. Okay, we can fluff around a lot of ideas. I'm not going to sit up here and go tit for tat and go back and forth. That's not what I'm about. But I know that our community is a smart community, and I know our community knows what they need and what they want. And at the end of the day, you'll be all able to make a decision on that. So, do I think I'm able to do the job? 100%. It's something I've always done. I've always worked hard. I've always been part of the community. So here I am.
Cheryl, where's Cheryl? Yeah. I think we have to respond for
Yes, we do. Did we put the bits of paper out?
Yes. So I thought we lost it.
Yeah, just run off.
Sure. Okay, so we've had some other last minute additions to questions from the audience. So, council works as a team, especially with the mayor. How would your mayoral relationship work with any of the candidates that we have up for, there's...
I can't see any of it being a problem. We've got two candidates here. Is there James here? Oh, three. Sorry, James, I didn't see up back there. So you work in small business, you got to work with different people. You have clients that don't want to pay you. You have clients who you may not even like. You've got to make sure that works. I know Brett, I know John, I don't know James, which wouldn't change anything. Being able to work with people, that's one of my strengths. So I keep banging on about relationships. That's what I'm about, is building relationships. You don't always have to like someone to work with them. Like I said, I don't know James, but Brett and John are both good men, and every dealing I've had with them has been positive.
My answer's probably pretty short. Yes, I think I could work with any of them. As long as someone is in it for the right reasons, they have the best interests of their community at heart, I believe I can work with anyone.
Yeah, I agree with that, I think. It's not very controversial, I'm afraid.
Let's take one question from the audience. Sure.
Hi, so my name's Lizzie. Logan City has pornographic cartoon books in its collection, and these have been on children's shelves, and children can borrow any of them. This is a huge problem for me. I have 3 boys, aged 9.
So I'm just going to stop this right now. As I just explained to the gentleman that come to me, this is not a candidate issue. This is a CEO issue at Logan City Council. The councillors do not control what goes on in our public libraries. So you can leave if you do not want to sit down.
Okay, so I think we're done with the with everybody. Cheryl, did you want me to give people a chance to wrap up? Or?
Yes, please.
Okay, if everyone would like to take 1 to 2 minutes to wrap up, Yeah, so maybe just 1 minute to wrap up on, why you're awesome and we should vote for each of you individually, or,
Well, can I just first and foremost thank Cheryl and the team at the Logan Chamber of Commerce and at the Lions for organising today. It's been a great opportunity to speak to all of you, and I agree we'll be around. I'm happy to take any more questions. But I think really, today in 2 weeks' time, we'll have a choice about electing somebody who's going to be our voice and really the person we want to work with for the next 4 years. I think we need somebody who's got experience in government. I think we need somebody who's got experience in finding solutions to issues, but also who doesn't have, who's got the courage to speak up and say that things aren't good enough and that we do need change. And I think I'm that person. Yeah.
I echo what Josh has said. Thank you for organising today and for giving us the opportunity to have our voices heard, but to hear your voices and to hear what you want for your community as well. I'm proud to say that I do live and work in this community and have for over a decade now. I look forward to continuing to work with you guys, no matter what role I have. That won't change. Thank you.
I think the big thing is if you want someone that actually has experience in the community, living here, raising a family here, running a business and understands what it's like, is going to actually do things at the grassroots level, then I'm your person for the job. If that's someone that you want, if you want a councillor that's going to have a really clean office, because I guarantee I won't be in mine enough for it to get messy, and actually be out and be part of our community rather than hiding behind emails and long-winded letters. That's as simply as I can put it. I'm connected to the community, the Logan community. We can talk about infrastructure, we know there's issues there and all those sorts of things. Logan is good enough. It's a great place. I've been here for 40 years. I'm not going anywhere. All right. I know everyone sitting in this room is proud of where we come from and what we do, because otherwise you wouldn't be here today. So if you want someone that's proud of where they come from, is connected to the community, is actually going to be transparent and honest, then I think I'm the person.
Thank you, everyone. It's been lovely and informative and educational.